a little bit more about active listening. I think, as your professor said, it is one of the most important skills. And I'm not saying that just because I'm a freelance consultant who specializes in that and I want to be hired, but also the more I learn about the business environment, the more I start to see these intangible skills becoming more and more important, right alongside the technological things that you probably also know. So my name is Nicole Kern. I'm here to work with you on listening skills. I'm an independent consultant, like I said. My working title is First Fire Collaborative Consulting. This is the first time I've been into a consulting environment in my entire career. I started off, believe it or not, as an actor. So it's really fun to be back in this performance hall and to see the dressing rooms. It's a little bit of nostalgia for me. So, without further ado, let me see if I can, this is really high tech for me, so I'll try to get this together. Woo! Okay, introductions. I'd like for everybody to take a moment here and introduce themselves, name, professional goal, and the most interesting thing that happened to you this week. Can we start over here?
Sure. My name is Vincent Glover. Professional goal is to be a writer, director, producer, have my own production company, and then own studio. Most interesting thing that happened so far, today I had an interview with like a. It's called Jones Movement in Oregon. So they're like they have a program where like you come and you could you learn like different skills like concerning digital media or like theatrical stuff like stage and lighting and stuff like that. So
What was this interview for?
it was for me to participate in their program either over the summer or coming fall in the fall.
Sounds exciting, Vincent. Good luck.
Thank you.
Who's next?
Hello, my
Hi.
name is Julio.
Hi,
I'm
Julio.
Zoro Rivera. My professional goal is that I want to improve my skills in video editing, camera work, things related to the mass media industry, and then to settle on a career, because right now I don't have a career in mind that I would want to settle in. The most interesting thing, I was trying to think about it, but I'm not sure. I guess I would say that the most interesting thing was that I got to be able, well, because I'm the president of the student media group, was a media club here, and we got offered the chance to sponsor a film festival that's coming to the school.
Oh, that sounds very exciting. The most interesting thing, and we're talking about exciting things, so I like the fact that the people are jumping to that.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Joshua Addison. Professional goal. I want to own like the biggest production company in Maryland. Film production. And most interesting thing that happened to me this week. I don't really have anything that interesting to be honest. Pretty chill. Not on this.
Sometimes it's good to have a down week, right? Who's next? Can we jump over here?
My name is Jazeel Baez. My goal in life is to become either a film director or a film editor. And the most interesting thing that happened to me this week, I finished the video. It was a PSA about the census, including footage from like high school students as well.
Great. When will that be available for consumption?
I haven't posted anywhere because I worked on it for my father's school,
Okay.
and so they're using it for their purposes. But I do have it on me.
Great. Okay. So,
Yeah.
well, congratulations. I think we're going to stick back to this.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi,
Okay.
my name
Hi.
is Kevin Singh. My professional goal will to finish up my degree, get a bachelor's degree in communication studies, and then career-wise, wherever life takes me, I don't really have anywhere specific. Maybe like marketing or brand management. Something specific that really interests me is like becoming maybe an English teacher in like a foreign country. That seems pretty cool. You get to travel. Something interesting that happened. Well, Monday I helped jumpstart my friend's car on the highway. It was pretty
Had
cool.
you done that before?
Well, not on the highway, but yeah.
So you knew about the negative and the
Yeah,
positive?
yeah. I know.
So all went well?
Yeah, well,
Great. Glad to hear it.
How you doing?
Hi.
My name is David Burris. My professional goal, I really don't have anything specific right now. I'm just trying to pursue my degree. Just figure it out from there. I play basketball too, so I just want to make sure that goes well. But if that doesn't go well, hope it does. But if it don't go well, just try to figure something out from there.
What happened to you this week that was interesting to us?
We lost the championship. I played for the school again.
You played the championship?
Yeah. What was the question?
You played the championship.
Yeah. Was that a question?
That's interesting.
Oh,
It's just a different interpretation of what you said. It's,
oh, okay.
We're going to get to that tactic later.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll
It's
stop.
a good one. Refraining is good. Can we jump back to Steve?
Hi, I'm Jose Guerrero. My professional goal, I would love to be a director like this gentleman said. Interesting thing that happened this week. It's been a pretty calm week. Today I'm having a pretty bad day. So that's kind of interesting, I guess. It's just like since the morning, it's just like negative, just one thing after another. So I don't know what I did to start it off that way, but it's just been a pretty bad day today.
Certainly hope it's nothing that you did and it's just a bad day.
I think it's my fault.
Hi, I'm Purnab Riley, and my professional goal to be a successful filmmaker. And the most interesting thing that happened this week is I do have a non-profit organization that is called Nepal America Film Society, and we organize international film festival every year in Washington DC area. So I met and I talked to the director of Maryland Film Office. So we finalized $1,000 sponsorships. So this is
The
interesting.
cash is flowing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Would you like to turn the camera on yourself?
oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay. I'll just, hi, okay, let me just do this. Hi, I'm Bobby Strickland. It's on me. Giselle, thank you.
It's nice that you have all cross-trained here, so you can just jump in when.
Thank you, Giselle. Hi, I'm Bobby. A lot of you know me. I am, where was it again?
It's up there.
Okay. Oh, professional goal? What is my professional goal? My professional goal is to continue to better myself here at Prince George's Community College and continue to have a job here at Prince George's Community College. Most interesting thing that happened this week. Oh, I was offered to be the stage manager for our dance concert that's coming up. So yeah.
Oh,
That was good. Thank you.
good. Thank you. Thank you for indulging. Would you like to say something?
My name is Dell. My professional goal is to retire happily.
From Prince
And the
George's
most
Community College.
interesting thing soon. And the most interesting thing that happened to me this week is having a face-to-face class meeting for an online interviewing class.
An online interviewing class.
Yeah, we have an online class that's for interviewing,
Mm-hmm.
and we're having a face-to-face meeting right now.
This is interesting.
Oh, this is it.
This is it.
Okay.
No sarcasm.
No sarcasm. That was delivered so beautifully. I didn't even detect the sarcasm. Thank you. Thank you so much for introducing yourself. As we go through this active listening, you may notice some techniques that were being displayed to you during that, and things that you may pick up about how you were listening yourself. So I want to spend extra happy time on that one. All right, so here's your session outline. We've got 3 hours. we are doing the introductions and go through the ground rules. I'm going to provide a listening overview, and we're going to kind of move really quickly through the passive listening part of this. For a couple of reasons. I really want to get to the active listening because that is nuanced. It's a relatively simple concept, but there's a lot of practice that can go into it. It is a define and refine practice. You've never done learning how to listen as far as I'm concerned. So we're going to blow through that. And then I've got a brief listening warm-up exercise for you guys. And I can actually say you guys. And then we're going to move into active listening. That's going to be a lot of information up front. After our break, we'll come back and do a hands-on exercise involving the active listening skills that we've already reviewed. There will also be a brain teaser. Oops, forgot about that. Brain teaser is something that we use a lot in the professional world to get everybody's mind back on what you're doing at the moment after you've taken care of the emails and the phone calls during the break. Then we'll provide a summary, and then I need your help with an evaluation. We'll explain about how to do that once we get there. So, with that in mind, let's move on. Let's stand right in front of it. Dead mouse?
No, I don't know.
Okay. So these are a couple of ground rules. I am presenting tonight and interacting with you the way I would with a professional client. If a company wanted to learn more about active listening and they hired me as a consultant, this is the kind of format that I would use. So slightly different from a traditional academic background or traditional academic learning environment. We always like to establish ground rules. And these are 4 of the really classic ground rules that you would see in a professional environment. Yes, it does sound like stuff you might have learned in kindergarten, but oftentimes people in the professional world will need a reminder that to get back into that learning framework and that learning state of mind. So safe space. This is an academic environment. Feel free to speak, especially when we're talking about listening activities. Feel free to, and as when we go into subconscious bias, feel free to speak, knowing that what you just said here will stay here. Discretionary use of technology, you guys look very well disciplined on that. That means please put your phones down if you can. I know things happen as you move through your life that you need to take care of. But if you can refrain from Googling, I appreciate that very much, so it can have some of your attention. Questions anytime. If you have a question, please shoot up your hand or say, hey, Nicole, I have a question. I will be forming and shaping tonight's training around how you respond. So that means I've got 34 slides, 36 slides here. If something isn't working for you, or you have a detailed question, we're allowed to move deeper into it and move out of the stuff that I have prepared. I don't know where you are with your learning on active listening, so if something's not making sense, please feel free to ask. Also, keep me on task, too. If I start to get into the weeds, you can always bring me back. Also, suspend judgment. We're going to talk a lot about unconscious bias here and judgment and how that can affect how you listen, or don't listen in some cases. So, entering into when we're talking about active listening is to kind of let go of anything you might have, preconceived notions, of what it is to listen. How many here have been told or they think that they're good listeners? I'm not raising my hand. Thank you very much for putting your hands down. I'm not raising my hand for a very good reason. The more I learn about listening, the less I know. Just when I think I've got it, I learned something new. That I'm not calling you liars, and it's not that I don't trust your assessment. I'm just interested to see how you might feel at the end of this, and if it brought you any new insights. Does anyone else have any ground rules that they would like to bring forward at this time? Sound good? All right, moving on. Can we give this a try again? All right. So why do I need to polish my learning skills? This is stuff you may already know. here. This will be available for you should you want to explore more of where I got this information. So we've got 70 to 80% of their day, and this is the professional day, listening, or excuse me, in some form of communication. 55%, over half of your day, is generally spent listening. So becoming a good listener, number one, is the cornerstone of good communication. Good communication cannot usually take place unless there is understanding between the parties that are conversing. It builds trust. We talk a lot. You probably, if you read a business journal, the big trust is a capital T word right now. What is it? How do we build it? How do we do this? It's a lot of talk and a lot of noise about trust. It's a very difficult concept. But if you prove yourself to be a good active listener, it does build trust. And of course, the thing that every business likes to see, it increases productivity, resolves conflicts, interpersonal conflicts within the business environment, creates self-empowerment. Self-empowerment is one of the keys to having a good, productive work life and to have good, productive people who work for you and with you. It also promotes acceptance. We hear a lot of talk about DEI. Does anybody know what DEI is?
Nope.
Diversity, equity, inclusion. These are ideas that are not new. They're just being repackaged into this thing called DEI. And that's a moment of crisis, I think, that businesses are coming to, going, we are writing policy from one person's perspective and expecting everyone else in that company to behave from that same perspective. And we'll get a little bit deeper into what that actually means. And as a result, it is an unequal and unfair environment. So there are vast majorities of workers who don't feel accepted, don't feel heard, and don't feel that they fit in with the culture of the workplace. And those three things are very, very important to worker satisfaction, to employee satisfaction, to employee longevity, how long they stay with the company, and also, again, productivity, which is a big, big part of a successful business, of course. Thank you. So, learning mindset. A little bit about reflective, active learning. It is a crowded field of study. If you're on your computer and you Google active listening, thousands, hundreds of thousands of, everyone has something to say about this. Harvard Business Review, you name it, they're gonna give you the 5 best categories of how to do active listening and then just turn it on its head. So there's a ton of information out there. Communication is messy. This is something I fight with a lot. Why can't it just be clean? Why can't we have a conversation and everybody walks away? We're all happy, right? Rarely is that the case. Oftentimes, communication is an ongoing relationship with you and someone else's and other people. Get comfortable with ambiguity. There's this thing called right enough that happens a lot in business. There isn't a right or a wrong when it comes to human behavior. There is a good enough, and I'll talk more about that concept when we start getting into ambiguousness, and when we start talking about cultural relevance and the different ways people from different cultures start to behave in this environment. Self-awareness, we're going to talk about this again. That's good old subconscious bias. It requires knowing whether you're a good listener, knowing if you need improvement and how you need improvement, and how you come across to other humans and how you perceive others. It requires discipline and energy. An active listening exercise can be exhausting. It is your entire body, as well as your voice and your ears. We'll get more into that later. And the learning never stops. I've mentioned this a couple of times already. Define and redefine. Define what it means to be a good active listener for you, and then refine that continually. We'll never stop. I had a grandfather who was about 86 years old and said, I still need to listen. I still haven't figured out how to listen. Just ask my wife. Thank you. Okay, so here we're getting into the meat of things. You guys with me so far?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah? Awesome. Thanks. I'm seeing eyes, so it looks like you're all good. Okay. So here we are getting into the meat stuff. These are the listening styles. Now again, I said that there are about 1,000 different ways to slice this. Hopefully I've come up with something that will be easily digestible, rather than giving you 12 different steps and multi-steps and so forth. I don't think it's that complicated, really, when we're talking about it. So passive, and we'll do a little demonstration of this, generally comes in 3 different flavors. And the active, sometimes referred to as comprehensive listening. I'm so proud of myself, I came up with an acronym. These are the steps, so it's not different kinds of active listening, these are the steps. And here's your acronym, C-A-R-R. I will drive the car for better listening skills. So it's something that when you realize you are in an active listening environment, you can bring up in your head, C-A-R-R, these are the steps I need to follow, or should follow, or perhaps I will follow, or throw them out, depends on what you need, to make sure that I at least have a framework for active listening. With me so far?
Yes.
Got it? Okay. Thank you. Okay, so looking at the 3 different kinds of passive listening, and again, there are many, many more. I just try to consolidate this. So appreciative listening, and I've highlighted here what I think are the salient points here. Identifying qualities, strengths, and values within what you're hearing. Qualities, strengths, and values. Any idea from you guys what you would listen to gain these things? Yes?
How they would answer the questions you ask them?
It's an excellent point. Qualities, strengths, and values of the speaker that you respect.
I would say like the tone,
Mm-hmm.
how they answer.
I tend to think of, does anyone else have an idea? Qualities, strengths, and values you respect.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah. What kind of listening environment, or what would you be listening to that would help you identify qualities, strengths, and values that you respect? Let me give you an example that I thought of while I was writing this. An inspirational and motivational speaker. In that environment, I would be listening for qualities, strengths, and values that I respect. I would be trying to pull those points out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so what would you be listening to where you'd be pulling those out?
Now, question: do you consider like looking at their nonverbal cues as listening?
We're going to get to that, yes. But absolutely. If you're listening to a motivational speaker and their body language isn't,
Exactly what they're saying.
then you might say, I don't respect that. And that's okay. In an appreciative environment, making those kinds of judgments is okay.
Yep.
All right. So got it with the appreciative? Okay. We'll move on to the next one. Okay. Emphatic. One of my favorite ones. Because I come from an artist background, this is something that I'm very keenly in tune to. This is paying attention to someone who's speaking for emotional identification, compassion, feeling, insight. I tend to think of music, plays, films. Any other ones?
It's gonna be a little messed up.
Dance?
A eulogy?
Oh, I think that's an excellent example. Yes.
Maybe somebody like in the past or future.
I had written that down, yes. I thought a spiritual, any kind of spiritual motivation or, yes. Yes.
Dating?
Dating?
Yeah.
Brilliant, yes. I think that's a great example. And again, this one is seek to understand before being understood. So there is not as much interchange in that. Go ahead. Okay. Analytical, and some people disagree whether this is actually active listening or passive listening. I put it in the passive side because generally there is not a lot of exchange going on. You are just listening, you're not speaking.
So we've got makes sense in light of factual evidence. Can you give me an idea of, yes,
Courtroom?
boardroom, right?
You're just listening.
And you've seen a lot of this in the political arena, with the Super Tuesday coming up. Maybe not, sometimes we tend to get a little emotional about that.
But debates, but like don't. I mean, I guess you're like listening at first, but then the other person has a chance to, come back with
Mm-hmm.
the point politics.
It's my understanding that in a debate, it's very rude and taboo to interrupt the other person. So you're listening, and then you're responding. Okay, so while the opponent is not speaking, there's an analytical component to that. Okay.
Job interview?
Mm-hmm. How many clients do you have? What's your budget? Is there free coffee in the break room? Yes.
Court.
Court. Anybody back here? Yes.
Like in the book, it was talking about at a doctor's appointment, someone's trying to evaluate you to see if what you're saying adds up to like a diagnosis.
Excellent. Right, those are all wonderful examples. You're starting to kind of see the different ideas, the different approaches to passive listening, which again doesn't usually involve interacting with the speaker. Okay, I think we're ready to move on. Thank you so much. Okay, so this is your warm-up exercise. We've gone through these, and here's your, summary of each one. I'm going to read a short story, and just by a little bit of warning, this is a relatively complicated story, and that's on purpose. Pick one and listen through that lens. Listen through, pick out, if you're doing appreciative, pick out strengths and values you respect, emphatic, emotional, analytical, does it make sense logically? So pick one, doesn't matter which one. Maybe one that you find a little more challenging, and I'm going to read a short story. After that, I'll give you a second to jot down a couple of things that you remember, and then we'll go ahead and share them. Sound good? Okay, any questions? Y'all with me? Great, thanks. Okay, here we go. This is, excuse me. This is from 99 Stories of God by Joy Williams in 2016. A noted humanist was invited to take part in a discussion about the dangers and opportunities that would arise if intelligent life forms on other planets were discovered. His remarks, though no one disagreed with them, became so heated that the producers later, in light of what had happened, decided to edit him out of the program. There was a consensus that discovering intelligent life forms on other planets was probable and even essential to the human endeavor, but much of the conversation concerned whether any life form discovered would hold a candle to human intelligence and creativity. The humanist, who was also a noted scholar, argued that nothing could be discovered that could write a symphony, or as so many of our brilliant composers had done, or be capable of appreciating the symphony. The ability to appreciate the symphony seemed to him quite as important as the actual composition of it. The humanist scholar became quite emotional in conceiving of the world devoid of human beings, which was a possibility brought on by one disaster or another, it must be said. This would be the worst thing you could imagine. Worlds devoid of human beings, even if these worlds were populated by other intelligent and enterprising life forms. After the taping, the humanist/scholar, whose name was Charles Thaxter Ormond, the acronym of which in the ever-evolving and vibrant field of text messaging would be, check this out, retired for lunch to one of the city's many small, fine restaurants. He ordered that day's special. When it was brought to him, whole and beautifully prepared and presented, he took a moment to study it before consuming it. To his discomfort, he detected from the plate the faint sound of the most beautiful music. It was exquisite, joyous yet heartbreaking, a delicate furling of gratitude and praise, gradually diminished and was gone. Horrified, he continued to look at the speckled trout that, according to the waiter, had been taken mere hours from its mountain stream. Then, with a cry, he rushed into the kitchen, where he attacked both the waiter and the chef with a variety of heavy utensils before he was subdued and taken away for observation at the nearest psychiatric facility. His ravings about the trout being no more appreciated than the ravings of any other lunatic. So take a moment, whichever one you picked, feel free to switch if it's a little too much, and jot down some things that you picked up listening through those lenses. How are we doing? Need a few more minutes? You're good? Okay.
A couple more minutes.
Yeah, I see a few more pens and pencils. Okay, let's take a moment to finish up. We'll be speaking these, so shorthand is fine. I won't ask you to turn them. Okay, let's go ahead and start. Who chose appreciative? Would you care to share?
Sure.
Thank you.
When the author was describing the scene where they're considering the other author, the author of the story, I guess the author that is the subject of the story, they're talking about dangers and opportunities of their discussion. I thought that was balanced. And so I always appreciate that in writing, where they're trying to assess both and it's not just leans one way. The author called the author they were talking about a noted scholar instead of maybe attacking him personally or her personally. They gave that person credit, despite the term at the end. And I thought it was descriptive without being like self-important. It was descriptive enough. It wasn't over the top.
Oh,
That was it.
did you find that this was relatively easy for you, or did you struggle with it? If so?
I struggled at the end. I don't understand what happened with I thought I was listening, and then I didn't understand what happened with the fish. Like what set him off.
The fish started singing, basically?
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I didn't catch that. I thought he was listening to something, but I didn't hear when they connected it to the fish. I just that he acknowledged the fish, and then he went crazy.
Why is the fish singing? Yeah.
But I thought I was following up until then.
That's kind of deliberate. No, it's not kind of deliberate. It is deliberate to pick a relatively confusing story, to demonstrate a little bit how deep you may have to dig to bring these things out. Thank you. In fact, please.
I said it was emphatic because there was a part in the story where he was mentioning like music, listening to the music, and then he used the words to describe it like beautiful. So I think that has to do with something like how he's feeling about the music. So I think that's emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did anyone else choose that?
I did too, but I'm not gonna lie. I felt like it was confusing. So I can't really like jot down anything I want to remember.
Okay.
But I did choose emphatic just because like how it sounded, especially like kind of towards the end. But, like, yeah.
Was there something that you emotionally identified with?
Only like okay.
Even
only
if it
thing I
was
feel like-
confusion.
it was confusion for sure, but like only thing I can really like kind of remember is when he started talking about like food being brought to him,
Mhm.
and I think the way it was like said in the story, like I don't know, like, it was brought to him in a way that I can't remember.
Okay. So this was, where was the jump? This is brought to him whole and beautifully prepared and
Yeah,
presented.
I think that's what really made me choose emphatic, the way he described, like, using the word food. Now that you said that, like, makes sense.
Okay. I understand this might have been a little unfair. I know this was a difficult story to listen to.
Now, I first picked the style analytical, like I was listening out for analytical things,
Mhm.
but throughout the thing, I was also picking up some emphatic feelings.
Mhm.
The way how he described how other life on different worlds can't listen to different type of musics and they can't make the same symphonies.
Mhm.
It was kind of, he was being kind of subjected to something he didn't really know, which was kind of mixing the analytical with the emphatic, because it's how he felt about it, but logically, he doesn't know anything about life from other planets because no one does. So he doesn't really know if they can't listen to music or not. Yeah.
I was confused about that too. I didn't want to say that there was aliens in the story because I didn't think there was aliens in the story, but then he confirmed that there was aliens in the story, so I was confused about that. But I went with the analytical because he was like the humanist didn't think that aliens could write a beautiful symphony or something like that. So I was like, to me, well, he doesn't know, but technically, like, we don't have any information on that.
Well, so there's a lot of factual inconsistencies in this one. Okay, anyone else on the analytical? And then I want to move on. Yes.
I couldn't understand the story either, but I was trying to pick out things or like that I could have used evidence to back it up, and I guess I didn't understand the whole story because I wrote down. People think that I didn't know who the character of the story is. I just got that his name was Check This Out.
Yes, okay. No, that's your confusion, I think, after hearing this, is not, I think it's the intent of the author in many ways. You're supposed to kind of have a WTF moment at the end. So yes, it's kind of interesting. I think there were a lot of emphatic reactions to this, to this story that were just underlying under the surface because it was confusing. You know, it's an existential crisis that this character is going through very quickly. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, it's okay. I just got that the story was that people thought that this person was more insane believing in aliens than believing in astrology.
I love that interpretation of the story when we're talking about the irony of someone dealing with these make-believe aliens.
No, I used to watch a show called Doctor Who.
Sure.
And they had an episode kind of like that, where someone met an alien who like made a beautiful symphony, and they were like, I didn't know they could do that, and that's what it made me realize in the beginning. And so then that's how I connected it, and I was able to like see where the guy is coming from, but then also see where his disbelief just doesn't really make sense.
And he goes into this mad crisis because it doesn't make sense to him.
Yeah.
Take one more comment and
I chose this one too. Basically, I'm a sci-fi type of person, so like at the beginning of the story, I kind of sided with it, and it made me feel like we were looking through his eyes. But then I started getting confused, and I don't know, I kind of zoned out, but I was trying to like pay attention, this one I picked.
Thank you. I can definitely see the director eye and ear going on here, and I think that's wonderful. You're speaking very, in my opinion, you're speaking very eloquently about how this story moved through, how you moved through this story when you were listening. Cannot wait to see what you guys film and produce. Okay, I'm gonna move on. All right, yeah, we did the what to do here. Okay. One more. Okay. We made it through passive listening. Any questions on that? I think you guys grasped it very well. Yes?
Going back for the appreciative passive listening, what were some examples of that?
Can anybody else
give an example of appreciative passive listening.
Well, it's like kind of appreciating where the speaker's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see how much emotion he's putting into this. Even though to one person it might seem stupid that he might be thinking about aliens and if they can listen to music, but he's so like intertwined in this, trying to figure this out. Even when the fish came out and he thought it was singing, he would like still felt feelings for it.
Mm.
And so like he appreciated the different things that he was trying to think of. And yeah.
Thank you. Good? Okay, great. All right, so I'm going to move into active listening because this is really, again, getting a little bit more layered deep into discussion of how to listen. So I said earlier about the CARR acronym. We live in a very acronym-heavy world outside of UC, so I'm going to move on to that. All right. Let me grab my notes for a minute because there are some details I do not want to miss. Okay, like I said, there are thousands of different ways to slice and dice this. But interactive listening, or active listening, does require the entire body. It is a give and a receive and a give between yourself and the people that are, person or people that are speaking. Now, I'm going to get down really deep into these things right now. So right now, let's move on to contact. Take the next slide. All right, so contact. This is where we're getting into some of the physical things. Eye contact. When someone is speaking, or when you are speaking, it is important to maintain eye contact. Everybody knows this, right? This is 101 stuff, right? Not a shocker to anyone. I would like to put forth, we're talking about nuanced behavior here, that eye contact is a balance. It can be, I don't know if you've ever been talking to someone and they don't blink.
That's so creepy.
You know, they might be a little nervous, so there's no blinking going on. I've noticed myself doing that once in a while. Or someone who is, you know, a little bit maybe looking at the floor. And so it's in between. It's glancing and looking away, but not staring. So I think most people have an idea of what this is like. Now, there's certain inputs that will happen in high nervous situations, like an interview. It might make you go a little one way or the other. So it's important to keep that in mind. Posture. Leaning slightly forward, yet relaxed. Oh, that's easy, right? Everybody can do that. Again, that's a balance. You know, somewhere in between, I'm falling off my chair and, you know, kicking back on my feet on the desk. Gestures, hands at your side versus arms crossed. We're talking about whole body postures here. Ooh, I'm scared, way too proud. Right, obviously you can see the theater here. I'm getting into a little bit of a large expression here. Facial expression. These, as I started doing some research, facial expressions are extremely cultural. To the extent that I thought if I wasn't speaking to someone whom I had grown up with and had almost identical experiences with up until this point, I might misread a facial expression. Let's see, and the last one, verbal behavior. We're going to talk a lot about this. This is part of the feedback mechanism. It's where someone is speaking, and you cut in with, I had the best soda this afternoon. That has nothing to do with what was being spoken. But it might in your head, but you haven't let the speaker catch up to you. What you just said reminds me of a soda that I had this afternoon, and here's why. Connect those dots. All right, let's move on. Okay, absorb, that's the first one, yes.
So on the connect one, you talked about eye contact.
Mm-hmm.
Now, isn't that kind of cultural because some cultures find eye contact to be rude?
Absolutely, and I've got a whole slide on cultural differences and how to work with that, because there's always an exception, always. All right, but I want to move, and that's coming, so thank you for putting it on. Okay, absorb. Ta-da, cultural intelligence, here it is. Absorb is, I think, the first traffic cone in active listening. It's the first one that is
easy to describe, but can be difficult to do, and that's why we're going to practice later on. And so I want to get into bias and judgment. Again, I want to remind you we are in a learning environment, and we start talking about subconscious bias. It can be a tricky subject. And cultural intelligence, I'll talk a little bit about the hazards of assuming. You move on. Okay, personal bias. Here we go. This is probably, like I said earlier, the most important thing we can look at. Okay. There's bias? Yes. Are you
no,
stretching?
I was-
Okay, I have a question. Okay. There are, again, many ways we can discuss this, and many ways we can define this. When we're talking about bias at its base level, there are two different kinds, conscious and unconscious. So this is, and I'm going to read this out loud, prejudice in favor of or against one thing, person, or group compared with another, usually in a way that is considered to be unfair. Conscious bias is what is known about yourself or another. For example, I was raised in Central Ohio. I am an OSU Buckeye fan. If I see someone else wearing a Michigan jersey, I am making immediate judgments on who that person is, based on nothing other than the jersey that they are wearing. Am I aware of that? Yes, I am. Does that mean it's okay? No. What? Are you from Michigan?
Go blue.
Exactly. But this is something that I know about myself, and something that I do not let move into my behavior. It's a cultural thing. Now, okay. Does anybody else have an idea of I hate Brussels sprouts, of a conscious bias, relatively harmless?
I don't like okra.
I don't like okra? Yeah. I don't either.
I don't like chocolate.
What about something you love?
I don't like coleslaw.
I'm sorry, could you say it again?
I don't like coleslaw.
Coleslaw.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't like onions.
Onions. Okay.
You asked for like
What do you love?
yeah.
Yeah.
I guess like old music.
I love old music. But there may be some old music out there that maybe you don't like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or maybe you have a bias against new music.
So what?
Maybe you have, because, why do you like old music? That's sorry, that's a better question.
I'm sorry.
Why do you like old music?
I don't know. It's I guess because I grew up with it.
Mm-hmm.
Because my parents would put it on, and they like it, so I like it too.
Awesome. So let's talk about another positive bias.
I like conscious rap.
Could you say that again?
I like conscious rap, like rap that actually talks about like meaning.
Bacon. It's a health bias. All right, so I think you're grasping the concept of conscious bias, right? The Brussels sprouts didn't do anything to you, you just don't like them. Okay, unconscious bias. Social stereotypes often incompatible with one's conscious value. This gets into cognitive dissonance. What I say and what I do are two different things. And that's where it does get a little bit difficult. Why? Because it's unconscious. Are you aware that you're doing it? No. But yet others around you who are engaged with you may see something you don't see. It's very important for me to stress that unconscious bias is not a bad thing. It is not a good thing either. Unconscious bias is the thing that makes us maybe take a little bit of a wider step around a shady character on the street at night. It is the thing that kept our ancestors from being devoured by a saber-toothed tiger because they knew they were seeing the bushes shake, basically. When unconscious bias goes into overdrive in an inappropriate situation, that's when we're starting to get into communication breakdown and some hurtful behavior. All right, so ideas for tackling subconscious bias. If you could get, when I was in school at Mason, we did a lot of work on subconscious bias.
which could kind of lead, in some ways, like the man who has the existential meltdown in front of the plate of trout in that story. If there are things inside you that are making, for me, if there were things inside me that were making me behave in ways that were undesirable to other people, it was a very difficult thing to grasp and a difficult thing to look at. Kind of like looking at the ugly part of yourself that maybe doesn't have a lot of light to shed. So part of that is personal reflection. Personal journal, taking a moment for yourself, and writing down or capturing, why did I do that thing? What made me behave that way? Reading, listening, and learning about people who are not like you. And a real hint, that's everyone. Everyone you know is not like you, to a more or a lesser degree. And then engaging with those unlike you. That's a little bit of a broader statement. If something makes you uncomfortable, lean into it gently. That's what we do as artists all the time. It's what we do as directors, it's what we do as writers. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, this is a big one. People will struggle with this through their entire lives. But it doesn't mean that it's impossible. It just means it's an ongoing thing, and yay, we can do something until we're dead. That's awesome. Okay, here we were talking about you mentioned some things about cultural differences, that different gestures, different facial expressions mean things, different things in different cultures. Now, I am breaking my own rule here. What I have up here is not indicative of these cultures in the broad term. They are general ideas, but never, ever, ever assume that what is here is true for everyone who grew up in that culture. Right? We get that, right? So I'm breaking my own rule here by even putting these up. The reason I did this is just to highlight how different gestures can be depending on your culture. So we have the placid expression in Japanese culture. Let me get you one more thing. The cultural atlas down here, this is my resource, is fantastic. But even they say, these are generalities. We are not responsible. So when in doubt, ask. Ask. If someone's doing a gesture or behaving in a way that is quizzical to you, again, lean into it. Ask. And we'll talk about how to ask those kinds of questions in a moment. So here we have a placid expression and a smile during interaction. Usually to me, what if I see someone placid and smiling while I'm talking, usually means what?
You're enjoying what you're saying.
Happy and enjoying what they're saying. What you're saying is excellent. Not so in the Japanese culture. It just means they're paying attention. Painting with a broad brush here, right? So here's an opportunity where I may misinterpret someone. They may be smiling and nodding, but deeply disagree with what I'm saying. But I have no outward indication that I understand. And then shaking the hand from side to side, palm facing forward means no. You had mentioned, who mentioned about the eye contact with members of the opposite sex? Yeah, that is one that can be, can get you in a lot of trouble in certain cultures.
Yep.
Something to be aware of. And then this is one I thought was lovely. Hooking the index fingers together signifies agreement. There are other hand gestures in the Afghan culture that this particular website does bring up that I found very interesting, and in some cases, for me, I interpret them as very elegant. So these are just examples, and there are many, 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 many more. So I'd like to move on to the next slide. And we're going to talk about reflecting. Don't worry, we're going to put this all together after the break. You have a chance to stand this all up. Okay. Active listening, reflect. Again, a very nuanced part of the active listening process. Okay, there are a couple of different ways you can do this. You can mirror, and that's when you verbally repeat exactly what you've heard. You can reflect, which is more what most people do. Oh, with the mirror, we see this a lot in courtrooms. When the judge immediately repeats whatever has been said, verbatim, word for word. Sometimes we may see it in therapy as well. in therapy practices where the therapist will repeat exactly what was said. But we tend to reflect more than mirror, rephrasing the speaker's words. And we're going to get into ideas for reflecting. Moving on, it will receive feedback from the speaker after the rephrase or the mirror. You know, I understand you, or you know, you are going to the grocery store now. Receive feedback from the speaker. Yes, I'm going to the grocery store. Okay, fine, we're done. We don't have to do this again. But if the mirror or reflect, are you going, I heard you say you're going to the grocery store. No, I didn't say I'm going to the grocery store. I said I'm going to the pharmacy and then the grocery store. Rinse, repeat, you have to go back up. Okay, I heard you, you're going to the pharmacy and then the grocery store. Is that correct? Yes, I am. You see how this could get cycled. If you don't get a positive response on the received feedback, it is time to do this again. You with me?
Yes.
Okay, how you feeling?
Good.
Get some thumbs up? Okay. Okay, so here's some examples of reflect, because reflect is another piece of nuanced work. So the student says, I like this discussion, but I don't know how to participate more. I like hearing from my classmates, and they have really good ideas. So the prof says, and she is concentrating on feelings here. Feel, wondering. Right now, you feel. And the emphasis here is on the emotion of what the person has said. You feel like you get more out of listening and participating, and you are wondering if that's okay. So this professor is picking up on the fact that the student is uncertain about their behavior and acknowledging it in the way they reflect and rephrase what the student has said. You with me? Something, does that sound easy? Something you could do in a conversation?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Let's go on to the next example. So employee, I like the new software, but I don't understand how to use it. Manager says, you would like to become more proficient in the software, but feel you do not have enough training? Question mark. Then the employee has a chance to say, yes, it's exactly how I feel. Okay, you don't have to rinse, repeat. You go on to the problem-solving part of the interaction. One last example. Okay, so this one I want you to fill in. Client says, and this is real. I have this all the time. A client says, I don't think we need to spend any more time on research. Our plan is good enough as it is. Consultant says,
You can say, so you're satisfied with what I've provided so far?
any other examples? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think I would say, so you feel like the plan that you have is good enough, and you don't need no services anymore.
I like where you go in both of these. Yeah, no, that's not, I like the beginning of that. I as a consultant, I'm not sure when I try to convince somebody I don't need their job. But I think you're right, there's an honesty there that is important. Yeah?
Yeah. So I feel that, or you feel that our plan is good enough, so we can move on to the next step.
Ah, yeah, moving the conversation forward. My example is you feel satisfied with the work that with the research that we have done so far and are ready to move on to the next step.
Yep.
And hopefully that gets a good response. Yes, okay, we're moving on. All right, so I heard some really good stuff. Thank you very much for jumping in and being a little bit of a guinea pig on this. We will have way more time to do this after, but great. But I think you can see that there's some nuances here and some specific word choices that really make the difference between good communication that is smooth and communication might be a little rocky. Okay, last one, last R. Retain. I love this one. Here are the key points to retaining. Some real basic things that you can remember that are going to work on, remember that slide way in the beginning said establishing trust and having a free, good open communication channel. Remember the name or name preference. Some people go by nicknames, we know this. And this is assuming you've never met this person. Especially if you're in a networking event, that's really helpful. Appropriate pronouns. I just did, over the summer, I did a series of dialogues on gender and gender identification. And a lot of work was done about use of pronouns. I can talk your ear off about that. Be an advocate. Represent the speaker to others well in conversation. It's a lovely way how you can just kind of spread the communication messages throughout your employment. Speak well of others. Confidentiality. Always assume that the conversation you are having with someone else is confidential, unless you have a reason to believe otherwise. One major caveat, the person is breaking the law or you feel that they are a threat, of course. And it's all deals are off. Okay. A bonus, apply to what you've learned in future interactions. Remember what they said. And then apply it. Remember how they behaved and then apply it. It's almost like you got a Rolodex card here, or an index card that says, when I spoke to Frank, we'll just use a strange name, when I spoke to Frank, he said he has 3 kids. One of them is about to go off to college. Really, really likes, carrot cake. Those are good things to remember about a person. So maybe, birthday comes around and there might be some carrot cake involved. The other thing that I did want to talk about, another really important detail, the correct pronunciation of someone's name. If you have to write it out phonetically or ask for clarification, can be very, very important. I have a relatively easy name to pronounce in this culture, but I would certainly appreciate it when people do pronounce it correctly. Okay. I think we're coming up on some nuances. Okay. You guys with me so far? Throwing a lot at you? Any questions at this point? Okay. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about listening nuances. I basically told you that story to tell you this one. So I told you all about active listening and how to do it, and now we're going to get back into how to do it. You do it right, it can still be a little on the wrong side. So, this is a wonderful research. If you have a moment, check this out, the Harvard Business Review. They did a fantastic job with this article. Okay, recent research suggests that these behaviors fall far short of describing good listening skills. So those are the things that we're looking at so far. Eye contact, right? Posture, retaining, suspending your bias, the things that we just spoke about. Here's a few more bonus tips here. Not talking when others are speaking. You're in a conversation where you're so excited, you can't help it. Am I the only one here? Okay, right. I have to rein myself in a lot when it comes to conversations that are very exciting. Let others know you're listening through facial expressions and verbal tones. Yeah. Being able to repeat what others have said, practically word for word. I'm a little suspicious of this. This sounds a little bit formulaic. Cultural and gender awareness. Great. Okay. Let's go after the flag. All right. Active listening refined. All of those things are good and well. I encourage you to go a little bit deeper. Ask questions that promote insight and discovery. I had a wonderful facilitator say, in every conversation that you have, try to avoid asking the question, why? So you need to omit the why question out of your conversation. They suddenly become much deeper, and it's actually quite difficult, at least for me. Best listeners make the conversation a positive experience for the other party. Someone walks away from a conversation with you and they feel that they feel positive. That's a good interaction usually. It's a good indication that you've done well. Cooperative conversation, feedback flows smoothly in both directions. and neither party becomes defensive about the comments made by the other.
I'm going to pick on you a little bit. I hope that's okay about
the you no longer need our services. I love that, and I would probably say that. But it might be interpreted as a defensive comment. I don't know if I can put that, well, fine, I'm out of here, note out of my voice. Thank you for letting me pick on you a little bit. Okay, shall we move on? Okay. This is one of my favorite slides. Okay, because it is one of the most humble things we can do. Apologies are something that I think are very rare in the business world. Very seldom do we hear an apology. Very seldom do we hear a well done apology. I think, anybody know why? Why do we know?
If you apologize, you're pretty much admitting that you did something wrong, and that brings down your reputation.
So if a mistake is a reputation damaging thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else know why an apology is frowned upon?
I just frown upon in business, right?
In business.
I just think because like business can be like a cutthroat, thing to be involved in. I mean, a lot of times, of course you're dealing with grown people, so it's like even when they say something that they may not mean to mean it in a bad way, they just have to be like assertive or whatnot because other people watching, they just gotta make sure they know who's. I don't wanna say boss, but yeah, just know I'm here. I'm not trying to downgrade you enough, but you're here. I don't know. That's how I look at it.
So if I understand this, I'm not saying I agree with the way it's structured, that those who have more power at work cannot be seen as fallible or as wrong or as making a mistake.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. For fear, this goes back to the loss of reputation and power. We agree this is a power thing?
I think so.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Why do you have?
I feel like in the business world, business aspect-wise, you can always fix something in the business world, so therefore it's irrelevant to apologize when you just fix it.
Sometimes fixing it can be the apology. Yes.
I don't think it's a good idea because they'll probably give your boss the idea that you think that it's okay, to make a mistake over and over again. And the only way to not let him get upset with you is to keep saying I'm sorry, but there's no point in that.
Interesting. So okay, we're talking about some. From what I understand you saying, thank you for these. Apology is a very mired swamp kind of behavior in the business world. This is what it's high stakes. We've lost of credibility, loss of power. I hear also weakness or incompetence. Okay. Or maybe action. Better actions speak louder than words.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I want to challenge some of those ideas. I don't disagree with what you're saying at all. I would like to put forward that an apology is one of the bravest things a human being can ever do. How many here in this room, myself included, you too, have never made a mistake at work? Never. Not once.
Don't even.
Never forgot to lock a door, never forgot to restock a shelf, never sent an email without the attachment. Never. Never, ever. Okay.
Yeah. Keep fighting behind
I got it right. We all make mistakes, right? We're human, it happens. Show up late, send an email without the attachment. How many people in this room, myself included, have never, ever angered or misunderstood another coworker? Never misunderstood or angered a coworker ever in their entire lives, ever. What do you do that you don't interact?
I mean, I work at, well, I just quit my job, but now.
You really don't now.
I work at a perfume store, I didn't start yet, but so now I work at a store. And it's we have to help each other so much, so we can't really get angry with each other. There's so much to do.
So you can honestly say that you've never misunderstood a coworker? Never?
Not in that way.
You know, I think retail is an exception to this rule. Most of us are pretty aware that at some point we've misunderstood or angered someone else. I'm not talking necessarily about the oops, I forgot to send the email attachment, or I miscalculated the numbers and we're off by $2,000. Oops. Yeah, big oopses. I'm talking about behavior. I'm talking about causing offense from someone else. Yeah.
But what if, like, in a work environment, like, that person's anger is because of their misunderstanding of me?
Oh, we're gonna
Like,
get into that.
I've been in that situation. I can't think of a time where, like, I've angered another coworker, do something I did. Like, it just could have been like a joke that they took.
I want to bring, apologies are really hard in this culture. Really hard. We don't do them well. This is my opinion. I don't think we do them well. I'd like to put this idea forward for acceptance or discussion. That if any act that I have committed, any act or word or deed that I have committed causes offense in someone else, I owe them an apology. Whether I meant to or not. Regardless of my intention, regardless of what I was trying to do, if my action or deed caused someone else offense, it is my responsibility to apologize. That's not my idea. That's Dr. Dashvin Key's idea. And when he said that, I was so mad. I was like, what? And then I really started thinking about this. What I intended to do or say is completely irrelevant to the person who's feeling offended. They don't care, and they shouldn't care. That's not their responsibility. It's my responsibility. When I apologize, I'm apologizing for the offense. I'm apologizing for the offense. Yeah, this is a hard one to swallow. It's a really hard one to swallow. I will tell you, I studied conflict analysis and resolution. And this is the thing where this is the part where most peace negotiations fall apart. Because self and other, the warring factions, when they get to the table, they may sign the peace accord, they may decide to set down their arms. When it comes down to a proper apology, that's usually when things just fall apart. We humans are really bad at apologies. Does that mean that we should get better at it? Well, personally, I think yes. Absolutely. Because it costs nothing to apologize. Yeah.
I think people these days, they apologize for things, but they don't mean it.
Yes. Yes.
They can say the words, but it's not sincere.
Yeah. The apology is not delivered in a way that the person who is offended understands. And yes, there is a disingenuousness, but I think this goes back to my 4-point apology plan. Okay, this is not mine. This is Dr. Dashvin Key's 4-point apology. It's an outline for how to apologize in a culture and a time where we don't do this. We do not do this. Again, going back to, I think if you properly apologize for something, it is literally one of the bravest things that a human being can do. And you might be really surprised at the results. You might be really surprised at the results. Yes?
You don't think that the person who felt offended, like, should understand the other person's intention?
No, absolutely not. Did you guys hear that?
Not necessarily.
That the person who's feeling the offense should understand the intent of the person who caused the offense.
Because that person may not have, like, meant to, like, hurt the other person.
No. Okay, how many of you wake up in the morning, roll over and say, I'm evil today. I'm going to cause as much offense as I possibly can to everyone. I am evil. Who does that?
Depends on the day.
Well, okay, all right. We all have our moments, right? Does anybody Very few human beings roll over in the morning and go, good morning, I will be evil, I will cause offense, I will cause hurt and destruction. There are people who do this. But the vast majority of human beings generally don't want to piss other people off. Okay? And we're not always aware. In fact, most of the time, we're not aware when we're causing offense. What we meant to do doesn't matter in this context. It doesn't matter if the person who's offended them. They don't care. Think about when you were offended at her, right? And someone said, I'm sorry if I offended you. That was not my intent. My intent was to blah, 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 blah. Yeah, you got checked out. I don't care. You know, I don't care why you did it. I care that you're not going to do it again. So here we go with the four-point apology. And we're going to continue to argue about this forever. I just want to bring this to your attention. Okay, so phrase the beginning of the apology carefully. I am sorry I have offended you. Not if I have offended. It's obvious you have offended. Or I'm going to use me because I don't want to point fingers at you guys. And I know you know I'm saying the you universal, but I'm going to talk about me here because it gets weird. I'm sorry I have offended you. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. It takes a lot of will to admit to someone that they hurt you. That is also an act of strength. Come over to someone and say, your actions hurt me, your actions, words, deeds hurt me. That's a strong move. Make yourself harmful. State what you have learned. And this is not a justification for why this was hurt, why this person was hurt, or what your intent was. I have learned that I won't steal paper clips from the office supply any longer. And the bonus is pledge not to repeat the mistake, if and only if you can 100% say you won't do it. I won't steal any more paper clips. That's your bonus there. If you truly comprehend what it is that I have done, if I truly comprehend what it is that I have done to cause offense, then I can say I will not do it again. Let's put ourselves on the receiving side of this apology. They have apologized for offending. They have thanked you for bringing it to their attention. That's an act of humility here. They understand and comprehend what it was that was done and said they will not do it again. How do you feel about that person? Jen? Okay. It's coming off as sincere.
I've used that technique before on like mad people at my old job.
How did it go?
87% of the time it worked perfectly.
I'll take those. That's a passing grade. Again, put yourself in this situation. You're the recipient of the apology. How does that feel? Does that person come off as weak to you? So that's the big so what about communication. When, if you screw up in the communication, and I know none of us do, I don't, here's something to think about. Okay, I think we're wrapping up for break here. Okay, barriers, we talked about this. Judgment or bias, we talked about this a lot. Technology, turn off your phones when you're talking to somebody if you can. Physical conditions, too hot, too cold, too noisy, too loud, too quiet. All of those things to consider when you're having a good conversation. Mental and emotional capacity, if it's the end of the day and it's Friday, it might not be a good time to have a heart-to-heart with a coworker. And then time management. Time box that conversation if you can. If you do not have the time to do it, move it to another. Key takeaway here is conversations, listening is messy, and it demands your time and your energy. All right, we made it. We're halfway through. What we're going to do is take a 10-minute break. Let me get a time check on here.
7:30.
Okay, it is 7:30, so at 7:40 we're all going to come back. So feel free to get up and stretch. We're going to do a bit of a brain teaser, and then we're going to get to the meat and the heart of the matter. I know I keep promising that, but this will actually happen. Exercise 2, active listening for problem solving. We'll do a summary, and then you guys are on your way. I'm just going to be hanging out if you have any additional questions. I will see you in 10 minutes.